Welcome back, everybody, to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones. And AJ, we are here for a special commitment edition of the THI podcast, as we are here to talk about Gio Lopez officially committing to North Carolina. South Alabama QB will be a portal transfer for the Tar Heels and comes to UNC with 3 years of eligibility remaining. A guy that we're going to talk a lot about kind of his background on this podcast, but I'll just go through a few basic things real quick. AJ, honorable mention, all Sun Belt guy in 2024, started 11 games for South Alabama, threw for just over 2,500 yards, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions on the season, and a 65.9% completion ranked 22. Added value as a dual threat quarterback as well. So a guy who can do it with his arm and with his legs. So before we go in, I could list a bunch of other stuff off and go into a bunch of other stuff we have in here. But first of all, AJ, immediate reactions to Gio Lopez committing. It was something that had kind of been rumored before the portal even opened. And when you look at Carolina's quarterback situation, you've reiterated many a times that you always felt like Carolina's quarterback during the spring was not on campus yet. And that may officially now be the case. So what's your immediate reactions to Gio Lopez finally and officially committing to Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels?
Well, he didn't land on my radar until after I had put a post on our board Monday morning about the heavy scent that was out there about Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee being connected to Carolina. One network did a crystal ball, and I went on the board and immediately said, guys, don't pay attention to crystal balls.
Yeah.
Last week, Dakota and Catchings, crystal ball to Carolina. Didn't happen.
Yeah, these crystal balls get way too much traction sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm not speaking negatively about the people who do crystal balls. Okay, Rivals doesn't do a crystal ball. I just never pay attention to them because we don't believe in ruining a kid's day. Number one, and crystal balls sometimes do that. Mm-hmm. Number two, ain't nothing etched in stone until it's etched in stone.
I always say it, AJ, it ain't official till it's official.
So we are so cautious and careful about two things. One, allowing a kid to have their day, and crystal balls can screw that for them. Number two, I don't want to ever get burnt. Mm-hmm. Ever. We've never had to write a retraction before. I never want to. Not that would be a retraction because it's a projection. It's not reported as facts. You don't have to retract it. But I've seen way too many crystal balls be wrong and projections in various networks. I don't even know what network does the crystal ball, to be perfectly honest with you. So they got
247 is a big one for that.
Okay, well, we're rivals, and I don't want to make it sound like we're going rivals versus 247. That's not what this is at all. It's just more don't pay attention to that stuff that much because a lot of it's wrong. There's a reason we don't do it. And if you are a Tar Heel Illustrated guy in Rivals, you understand why we don't do certain things. So there's no value to doing that other than just getting that little cotton candy take. And what happens after you eat a bunch of cotton candy? You feel like crap. So I've never been a cotton candy traffic guy because there's no redeeming value. There's no residual value to that because if you do it too often, people are like, yes, they don't know what the hell you're talking about. So I posted on the board, look, there is a scent about Nico. I couldn't get any further than a scent. You smell it, you don't know what window it's coming from. But there was a scent. And then I get a text about Gio Lopez. Like, who's Gio Lopez? Didn't know he was, honestly. I mean, I didn't watch the Sun Belt.
I didn't know he was either.
I didn't know he was. I mean, I don't cover the Sun Belt. I know a little bit about App. That's about it.
Yeah, I don't sit around watching South Alabama in my free time during college football season. Not that I have much free time on Saturdays.
They're in the Sun Belt, so they play in a good league. Sun Belt's a good league.
I mean, I watch App State. I went there. I don't watch every game, but I'll follow them a little bit.
So I went and started learning about them, and then there's some stuff that comes out with the different national guys, even Pete Thamel, I think, who doesn't always dabble in these things. So I decided to roll up my sleeves and learn about the guy. And there's some intriguing aspects to his game, but it's kind of weird because Nico is 6'6", glides and could throw a little bit, but a lot of people also dogged him that he wasn't great in the big games. And I'm saying the reason I'm bringing this up is not to continue talking about him, but the comparison. Nico's 6'6" and can glide. This kid's 6 feet tall, 220, left-handed, and runs. He's like a left-handed, not as developed version of Sam Howell. The year Sam Howell ran the ball a lot. Like, there's a lot of stuff there. He's obviously not Sam Howell. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been at South Alabama. So moving on from that, what is the intrigue here? What is the connection? What is the vision that Belichick and Lombardi have if he is someone they bring in? And if they're going to bring in one quarterback from the portal, they're probably bringing him in thinking he's going to be the starter. Mm-hmm. So I go back and start thinking about what we saw Saturday. We saw them huddle. We saw a little bit of fullback. We've heard about more fullback. Maybe there's tighter splits with the offensive line. There's dual tight ends that are blocking down before releasing or just blocking down out of the offensive lineman. A lot of that kind of stuff. So you bring in a guy like this who's not going to throw for 450 yards a game. He's not going to chuck it like Drake and Sam did. More, and they both ran the ball some, but you run design stuff with him a little bit more because he could scoot and he could break tackles. That you start to think, okay, maybe this makes a little bit of sense. So whatever we're going to see against TCU becomes a little bit more clear in thinking ahead. Because again, we haven't seen a whole lot. So we're left to do this. We're left to piece these things together to try to understand what Carolina's going to do. So that's kind of it. I like what I see. I like the energy from the kid. He's an upside guy. There are a lot of, if you're worried about South Alabama, well, Cam Ward started out at Incarnate Word. Yeah. Carolina fans would love to have had Cam Ward last year. I'm not saying this kid's Cam Ward, but it looks to me like there's upside. Because if you look at how he's progressed, and he started 11 games last year, not 13, because he missed 2 games because he had a concussion. So I like it. He's not a wow bring in, but Bill Belichick doesn't give a rat's you-know-what about wowing now. He wants to wow in November. That's what the wow is about. Like a lot of people love to say, you got to win the press conference. Well, no. I'll never forget covering John Bunning's hiring in North Carolina and as Star News, and they decided me to cover that instead of Jim Groves at Wake Forest, which was at the same time. And who was the better hire? Jim Groves was the better hire. So you don't have to worry about the wow minute. These guys are very calculated. So to me, it gives a little insight on what we're going to see a little offensively. They like the grizzled nature, the competitive nature of this kid. And I will add this. It's interesting because I went back and I was looking at interviews during spring practice in South Alabama. And he did an interview early on in spring practice where he acknowledged flirting with the idea of entering the portal back in December, but wanted to come back and go through spring practice and be committed to something. And at the time, said he was fully committed. I love being here. I'm so glad I didn't go, and that kind of stuff. The other guy they interviewed that day was Devin Voisin, I think is how you pronounce the last name. Their best wide receiver. And we're hearing that he's entering the portal too. I'm not connecting him to Carolina. It wouldn't be a shock because you know how these things go. But the two guys that spoke most highly about him coming back and how he loves it and he's not going anywhere were he and his buddy, the wide receiver he threw the ball to, and now they're both gone. So that's the nature of where we are right now. But it could be Carolina's benefit.
Yeah,
he's an intriguing player. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, he is. And let me just read a little bit more. Again, you mentioned only 6 foot, about 220, dual threat guy at 82 rushes in 2024, about 5.7 yards a carry, 7 rushing touchdowns. But this is where some of my wheels started turning, started kind of maybe comparing him to potentially some other guys. And Coach Major Applewhite over there, so he's quoted him as a relentless competitor. And my mind went automatically to a guy like Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt, who started off at New Mexico Military Institute before he went to New Mexico State, ultimately ended up at Vanderbilt. AJ, he's playing in Roswell, New Mexico, got alien spaceships flying around during football games.
South Alabama is a better program than New Mexico State.
100%. And again, this guy like Diego Pavia played a year at, a JUCO essentially before he went to New Mexico State. So But what Pavia kind of represented for who shorter than Gio Lopez, by the way, but what he kind of represented for Vanderbilt this year was he was a culture changer and a kind of a culture. He set culture when he came in. And he kind of helped transform that program a little bit, who was also kind of under new tutelage as well. So my mind kind of went to him because he's a shorter quarterback, but he's a relentless competitor like, Gio Lopez is touted to be. But he's a guy who can throw the ball, but who can also run, but he's tough. And I think that in some ways might be what Carolina's getting with a guy like Gio Lopez. So, again, am I a little surprised that Bill Belichick went out and got a short left-handed QB who likes to run more than he maybe, I'm not going to say likes to run more than he likes to throw, but has the ability to really use his legs a little bit? That wasn't necessarily what I was expecting him to do when you think of maybe the more pro-style offense that we saw a little bit in glimpses of spring. But I think he ticks a lot of boxes, and I think that competitive edge that he could bring, and if he can come in and be that kind of guy who helps set the culture here at North Carolina, which is something that Bill Belichick is obviously trying to do, then I think it makes a heck of a lot of sense. And he's a guy too that didn't get hurt a lot in college despite the size, was a winner at New Mexico Military Institute. I think they won. I forgot what they won. They did win something the year he was there. Excuse me, I'm talking about Pavia there. He's a guy at South Alabama that came in and really did some nice things in the seasons he was there. So I like Lopez on paper, but for me, there's always still going to be a couple of question marks there. Yeah. Is he big enough to play? Is he, can he throw the ball well enough to play? I haven't seen enough tape of him yet to really know that, but I do like the idea of a dual threat quarterback. I was just personally a little bit surprised that maybe that was the direction, but maybe I shouldn't be when you look at who's back there, Bryce Baker and Ryan Brown. I mean, those are guys who can use their legs as well. So maybe that's something that Bill Belichick's identified of the direction he wants to go in. But I think when a lot of people think of Bill Belichick, you don't really think dual threat quarterbacks, but man, he's got 3 of them back there. So yeah, I think he's a good pickup overall, but I like anybody, there's still going to be a little bit of question marks about can he take that next step, especially at that size.
I think the most astute thing you've ever said in one of our podcasts is what you just said. And the Diego Pavia comparison is a brilliant one. And I go back to the Alabama game. Vanderbilt holds them off because of his attitude and his leadership and him saying, okay, guys, let's rush up this hill.
It's so important.
And they all rushed up the hill.
So important.
And Vanderbilt hasn't rushed up a lot of hills before. North Carolina hasn't typically been a rushing up the hill program either. And if you talk to people in the industry, in our industry, and get their take, and you also talk to people that in coaching, North Carolina was considered soft. And there ain't no rushing up a hill when you're soft. So I think your observation is incredibly astute. And I think that the value Diego Pavia brought to Vanderbilt was far more than his passing percentage, his rushing numbers, moving the chains, that kind of thing. I mean, there are a lot of times you'd watch it. And we all ended up watching a lot of Vanderbilt. They played so many interesting games last year. And to me, it started when they knocked the snot out of Virginia Tech when we're all stunned.
I watched a good amount of that game, yeah.
We're making fun of Virginia Tech and didn't realize they're losing to a good football team.
Yeah.
But what did Pavia do? Oh, first down. And you're wearing the other team out. Sometimes you maybe not scoring those possessions, but it's first down. You're just accumulating all these things in your war chest during the course of a football game. And if Gonzalez can be that kind of guy, Lopez can be that kind of guy for Carolina, then if it's 1 year or more, that gives us a lot of interesting insight into how they view this program. We knew they were going to make it tough. We knew they were going to turn it into almost like a boot camp in the spring. And a lot of guys were going to leave simply because they couldn't handle it. So you've got to have a quarterback that can handle it. You've got to have a quarterback that can exude it. And I think because of their many needs that we talked about in our podcast that we ran when the portal opened, they need interior guys. And I'm telling you, linemen are expensive, and they're more expensive in the portal than DBs are, than linebackers. I mean, they're expensive. Backup offensive linemen get good money, okay? They need linemen. So if they can go out and get a quarterback they think that fits perfectly with what they want to do, and not have to spend a ton of money, that gives them more cash to add some parts to the offensive defensive line, defense in particular. Now, when we're recording this, we don't know all the information yet about what they're accumulating because the portal's so fluid and so fast. You and I have been doing a couple of pods here for the last hour and a half. Goodness knows what's happened, okay? Thank God for Kevin Roy and Brian Balcom to watch things for us. But it does give them more resources to go out and fill in some other holes. So I'm with you. There's some question marks. Can he handle playing in the ACC? He was honorable mention. It wasn't like he was first team or player of the year or anything like that. You know, when JT Toppin left New Mexico and everyone Texas Tech, he was, I think, player of the year in the Mountain West, which is a really good league. So he becomes player of the year in the Big 12. So we don't know where this guy's ceiling is. But your point is a phenomenal one. And I think if you match that with what you see on tape, I kind of have an idea where they're going with this thing. Mm-hmm. And they want dudes. They want grinders. They want guys that when you're in the trenches, when you're in a combat situation, you look to the left, you look to the right, you want those guys with you.
Yeah.
And they want that kind of guy. They want that kind of program because if you're an NFL-ized college, these guys are playing for meals, man. Mm-hmm. And you want your college guys to be that way as well. You want them to comport themselves every minute that they're doing anything football related to be playing for their meals.
Mm-hmm. I think Lopez can come in. If he can come in and be a follow me guy, which is what you need at quarterback to be a really good team. You need follow me guys. That in based on some of the quotes that, Applewhite talking about, based on some of the stats, based on watching some of the tape, I think he has the potential to be that guy. Now, potential of being that guy and actually doing it is a different thing. But like I said, I think that's my idea of what Carolina's trying and Bill Belichick is trying to do here because the talent's there. But like you said, it's not like they just went out and got a second team all SEC quarterback. I mean, this is a guy that was honorable mention all Sun Belt. The stats are nice and they look good. And he's a little undersized and left-handed QB, a little unorthodox. Like he can run. Like there are still question marks obviously there, but besides all those things, if you can come in like a Diego Pavia did and just automatically kind of flip the culture of a program like Vanderbilt that has been historically mediocre. I mean, Carolina's more of a storied history in the last 20, 30 years than Vanderbilt does. And that's not saying much.
100 times better history than Vanderbilt.
And it's not saying much, but still, I think if he can come in and be that guy, then he's going to be the most important portal addition that Carolina makes this offseason. There's going to be zero doubt about it. But like you said, and like I said, still question marks. And I'm very intrigued to see, does he automatically come and start, or is he coming in to compete? I mean, obviously he's going to come and compete. Nobody's guaranteed a starting spot. But when you go out and get a guy like this in the portal, most automatic assumptions go, well, he's your starting quarterback, especially when you look at the situation Carolina's in. Very intriguing fall ahead to see how that kind of works out.
Yeah, I think he is. And also the Major Applewhite factor is important too. You weren't watching college football when he played at Texas. I was.
I know the name though.
And Mac referenced him all the time. Major Applewhite was a guy that got everything out of his talent. Mm-hmm. He was a guy that when Chris Sims came in, who arrived in a limo to practice, which didn't set well with his teammates, everybody just assumed he was the golden boy. He was going to be him, Major Applewhite. No. This is my job. And Applewhite gave them that edge at Texas. Mac loves Major Applewhite.
I actually watched a documentary months ago about that Texas team, and Major Applewhite was a big part in it. It was kind of working up to the national title later on, but it was about Mac's kind of early tenure there.
He was a gritty quarterback, and so I understand why Lopez played for him. And when you hear Applewhite talk about him, take his words seriously, not with a grain of salt, like some coaches. Take it seriously. You can learn more about the guy who could very well be Carolina's quarterback next season, and I think likely will be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a solid pickup, and he's a guy that I'm very intrigued to see what he can come in and do, because I think there's talent there. But again, there's always questions with the size, with the step up to ACC football, especially at North Carolina, with the expectations and the eyeballs that North Carolina is now going to get. It's different than it was last year, but I think he has the potential to come in and do a good job potentially.
By the way, I'm all over this because in the last, you were talking long. I think you saw me working on the phone. 3 portal updates in like 2 minutes on the phone while we're doing this.
I tweeted out. It's just wake me up when the portal closes, please. For the love of God, just wake me up when it closes. I don't even want to know. But obviously, you can't bury your head in the sand like that, man.
I know where I want to be when the portal closes.
Yeah, I know exactly where you want to be when the
Jacksonville
portal closes,
Beach, Florida.
You will be as well. So, I think there'll be a lot more moves in the portal, but we're not going to do portal pods for like we do with basketball. It's just we'd be doing podcasts.
We can't do it on all of them, but we had to do one on this guy.
Yeah, you had to do one on a quarterback coming in.
And by the way, anybody previously named Gio played football at North Carolina did pretty well.
Yeah, Carolina's got a heck of a track record with Gio. So if he can come in and be 3/4 the player Gio Bernard was, then he'll do a fantastic job in Chapel Hill. So we'll see, man. But again, good pickup, and I think it's one that'll potential and very well maybe Carolina's starting quarterback against TCU in a few months. So get involved in the comments. Let us know what you think. Are you excited about Gio Lopez? Do you think he can make that step up? Or do you have any reservations potentially about him, especially looking at his size and maybe what he's done in college so far? Let us know. We want to hear from you guys. But I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. We appreciate you guys watching as always. Head on over to Twitter and Facebook. Like our pages. We'll be giving away some more free subscriptions to TarIllustrated.com when we hit our next milestones. And obviously subscribe below and hit that notification bell too, because we're going to give some away. We're on the race to 25K now, AJ. We hit the 20 mark, trying to go to 25K. I think we can hit it quicker than I maybe would have thought when we first hit 20K. We're climbing, man. And it's the off season. I know the portal helps, but I think we're at like over 20,200 now, maybe close to 20,000.
We're on 20,400 right now.
Damn, man, I didn't even see us past the 300 mark. That's fantastic. I absolutely love to see that. So
we're almost at 36K on Twitter. We want to get to 40.
Getting close. Slowly and steadily. It's been slower, but we're
giving away freebies on that too. Follow us on Twitter, guys.
Yeah,
at Gio Illustrated, follow us.
All you gotta do is links and description, hit the button. Appreciate it, guys. And
they just got a commitment, by the way, in the portal. This is crazy.
You gotta love it, man. Well, we'll go figure that one out and see what's going on there. But TarIllustrated.com, and you'll know. Head on over there, and it'll already be up there. So appreciate it, guys. See y'all next time. Thanks.